Hello, everyone. My name's Father Alexander Har,
And I'm Father David Marshall.
and this is a bridge between Hurricane or Hurricane edition. We'll settle that in a moment, uh,
It won't
where
be
we
settled.
where we bridge the gap between our knowledge of the scriptures. We bridge the physical distance that we have, because there is no friendship distance between us.
Oh,
And
that's very sweet.
this week, what else are we bridging?
Pronunciation of hurricane,
Amongst other things,
amongst other things, right?
including burning bushes.
Oh, that. Oh, we're going to talk about burning bushes today.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
So for those of you who don't know, we are recording this on Monday, excuse
No,
me,
my
on Monday, and we are doing preparations right now for Idalia. We are here. I'm in St. Petersburg, Florida. You're, of course, on St. Michael and All Angels on
I,
Longboat 2.
Saint Michael. Who's that?
Or you're just All Angels?
Yes.
How do you say Michael and All Angels?
That. That's a different barrier island.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, I mean,
This is
we
embar-
get confused.
this is embarrassing now.
It is embarrassing. It's tough.
So, so, and
I'm
you're
very sad.
on.
Should we start over?
No, no, we're not going to start over.
So
So
it's hurricane, and it's all angels.
okay, so and I say it's hurricane, having grown up in South Florida, where we know what hurricanes are all about. And I know there are people from up north who call it a hurricane. So
When you say up north, you mean still south of Georgia.
possibly, yes.
Right.
Anything north of us is north. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So we're getting ready right now. We're making preparations today. We worked with some parishioners here to get doors, with sandbags and all those types of things that we need to do. And one of the things I can't stress enough to congregations, to clergy, to everybody, make sure you have an emergency action plan. Make sure you have a disaster plan and follow it. Make sure you're in contact with the diocese in your congregation and the other parishes in your area to see if they need any help.
Very good.
Yeah.
And I think it's really cool. Like the difference between your church, which is on a peninsula, right?
Yep.
Or isn't it? No, it's not an isthmus. It's a peninsula,
Yeah.
right? And a barrier island church is like sandbags. No, we'll just be underwater.
Right, right. And we're not worried about flooding here because
Right.
of the storm surge, because we're further inland. We're worried about the accumulation of rain just eventually just coming in and seeping in. And for those of you who may not know, we finally finished the repairs and the renovation of our preschool, which was significantly damaged, almost destroyed by a tree last Christmas. So we don't want any water damage to come into these brand new floors and walls. We don't want to deal with that again. So
Right.
keep us all in prayer. We're going to keep you in prayer, Father, and
Oh, thank you.
we're gonna get through this.
I'm much more concerned about other churches and things that we're
Right.
despite my silliness, we are quite prepared and we're hardened. We're ready for it. And when I first interviewed here, they said, "Well, the good news is we're 8 feet up." And I said, "What's the bad news?" And they said, "Well, what if there's a 9 foot surge?" So just so you know, All Angels is 8 feet. And the interesting thing for me for Hurricane Ian, the last one that came through, I did what as I've been taught, and that is that one of the last things you do is you walk the property, you encircle, you walk the entire campus, and you pray. Jesus who calms the storm, Jesus who rebukes the wind and rebukes the waves, all that, and prayed it all the way around for a cone to be on this place, and it worked. I mean, of course it works. So we had we had no damage. So we had a little bit of water intrusion, like 3 inches on one door, and that was from driving rain, because we thought the wind and the rain was coming in from the south, and it came from the north. So surprise!
Well, and the
But
wonderful thing
yeah,
is,
we fared well.
I remember that after the storm, your parish opened its doors and became an area where people can come and rest, get some air conditioning because it was so hot outside and power was out for so many people, and people who were working in relief in the area. So that's why, maybe you were protected so that you can be that burning bush for somebody.
That's right. We called ourselves the Comfort Station, and
Mhm.
we had power. We had internet within less than a day, and We had, of course, water and everything else. And so, yeah, we opened our parish hall, our church, and we had people doing business. It was just, it was great, and really got to know them. We had people donating food and all sorts of stuff. It's fantastic. So, um, yeah, so we'll see what happens this time, but we do stand ready as a comfort station to go, and that is one of those symbols and one of those images, which is the burning bush, to be that burning light, the one that others stream to and hear. So I'm actually considering. So we have outdoor speakers thanks to COVID,
Hmm.
um, because we had to meet outside, and so we have these really really good outdoor speakers, and I play music on a regular basis when I'm here. I'm thinking about having it play the entire time so that anybody walking by can hear if we have power, if we're still on. I think I'm going to do that. The more I talk about it, the more I think we're going to
Yeah,
do that. I'll have it quiet, so you have to be near the church to hear it, but
I think that's a
that'll
good
be
idea.
fun.
All right.
Yeah.
So today, once again, we're taking a little bit of a break from the gospel because I think we have kind of talked about some of these readings extensively. And today we're talking about a reading from the Old Testament, which is one of my favorites that I don't get to preach on very often. And that is Moses encountering God, Moses in the burning bush. And once again, this is a rare one where you and I don't fully agree on meaning and interpretation or purpose. So I'm eager to dive in.
Good. All right, so let me pull up the reading. We're just going to do the first part of chapter 3 of the book of Exodus.
Hmm.
Moses was keeping the flock of his father in law Jethro, the priest of Midian. He led his flock beyond the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of a bush. He looked, and the bush was blazing, yet it was not consumed. Then Moses said, I must turn aside and look at this great sight and see why the bush is not burned up. When the Lord saw that he had turned aside to see, God called him out of the bush, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. Then he said, Come no closer. Remove the sandals from your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground. God said further, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God.
All right. So,
Yay!
so what do you take away from this particular passage?
There's a lot. So, um, if you don't mind me jumping right in, uh,
Yeah.
first of all, so Moses is tending his father-in-law's sheep.
Hmm.
This is an act of humility, I will put it nicely. Moses was raised in the household of the Pharaoh. I mean, what in the world happened? Why is he not in Egypt? Why is he out in this land? Why is he tending somebody else's sheep? He murdered a man and he fled, is the answer.
Hmm.
And so he ran away and has shown up here. Now, by saying murdered, I mean, he did actually. There was a man who was mistreating the Hebrew people, otherwise known as the Israelites. I will continue to refer to them as the Hebrews because they had not yet gotten to Israel. So the he saw this mistreatment. He, in an act of self-defense, he killed the man, and then he expected everybody to rise up with him and to overthrow all of those people, and they didn't. And so he fled. And so part of perhaps Moses' hiding of his face is from the shame of what he has done.
Hmm.
Maybe and you'll, on Sunday when you hear this, if you go to a church where this is read, you will hear Moses doing all sorts of reasons why God shouldn't do this. And you said it's Moses meeting God, and I was chuckling to myself because I thought it's a little bit of God meeting Moses. Of, hey, Moses, let's do this. No, no, really. No, I can't. I've
Yeah.
tried. No, I can't speak. I stutter. No, this isn't going to work. I don't even know your name. I mean, all of those excuses, they're just flowing out. So we're going to get to that in a second. But there is some more I want to get from it. But the first thing I want to say is that there's a parallel between leading the sheep that were not his own. He led them to Mount Horeb. It was a foreshadowing of him leading the Hebrews to the same mountain. This is the idea of shepherd who is God, we who are sheep. That God had set up this really interesting parallel, if you will.
All right. Nothing I don't agree with so
Oh,
far.
okay. Well, we're gonna have some fun then.
All right.
Yeah.
So I mean, when I hear this story, I think the most provocative, or not even the most provocative, but kind of the most important moment for me is when God tells Moses, "Remove your sandals, for this is holy ground."
Okay.
And I'm wondering, had Moses encountered the concept of holy ground before in the
Hmm.
context of God? Because he hasn't met God. When you remove your shoes when you go into somebody's home, it's a sign of respect. There are religions in the world that when you go into their temple or their mosque or their
Oh,
other
yeah.
place of worship, it's a sign of reverence to remove one's shoes because you don't want to track in what you've brought in from the outside. But there's also, to me, a sense of vulnerability there. Shoes protect your feet.
Right.
So one of the things that we've talked about in our parish at St. Vincent's when we had our vacation Bible school is we did something where we created kind of a prayer box with the kids, and they each got different items talking about the different things that we pray for on Sunday. So, praying for the poor, praying for those who've died, praying for the welfare of the church, that kind of thing. And the whole point was, do you have a holy place where you live that can be a holy place for you of prayer? Uh, in most homes, I'm going to go out on a limb and say we don't usually designate a holy place for prayer and worship. We usually reserve that for when we go to church. And so, just a thing that I think about now is, are we living in such a way that we bring holy ground with us wherever we go? I think that's kind of the key question that I'm taking away from this.
Hmm. That's excellent. Um, Being out here on a barrier island, I see people on a regular basis find their way to the beach and they
Mhm.
immediately take off their shoes. And to me, that means because the beach in the Gulf of Mexico is holy ground, right? That now it's also because it's sand and all that. But in when we were living in San Diego, we were actually living half a block off of the beach. And so my boys would go there. It was our backyard. That's where they would go and play. And we would see people with all license plates from all over the place that ended up in San Diego. And often people from Michigan were the most exuberant at taking off their shoes and running in whatever they were wearing into the Pacific Ocean because they've always seen movies of people doing that.
Yeah.
They didn't realize that the ocean at the time, because it was around Thanksgiving, was 61 degrees. And so they hit the water, and it's like they walk on water as they're running back. Like, wow, we thought the water would be warm here. No, you're thinking
Not
of
so much.
Hawaii. And it's not even that warm in Hawaii either. The Gulf right now, you know what the temperature is?
88 degrees.
91.
Oh, well, I'm not far off.
Yeah. I mean, it's 91 down here at where the Barrier Island is. Hopefully, it's a little cooler up there. But that's why we were worried about this hurricane because of the hurricane, because of the rapid intensification. But back to our lesson.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what did Moses see that caught his attention?
He saw a burning bush. And the key here, for those of us who are not from that part of the world and not part of that cultural context, is what threw Moses off was not that there was a bush that was burning, it's that it wasn't consumed. Because I
Yep.
believe that the sap within those trees is kind of like a flammable oil almost. Correct?
Well, I've heard that yes, and that the afternoon breezes kick up like they do in a lot of desert
Yeah.
areas, and they start rubbing against each other the way that we were taught in Boy Scouts how to make a fire. And so with that sap, and then all you need is a spark, which is the friction of them, and they will just spontaneously catch on fire,
Yeah.
and then burn out.
Yeah.
You know, but
And
this one didn't.
why didn't it?
It was an angel of the Lord that
Okay.
was standing on the inside of it.
There you go.
So to my left, there is Temple Beth Israel, which is a synagogue,
Hmm.
And we are getting to know them well, and we are going to be doing some exciting activities and events with them for this coming program year. And they had asked us, because we're making a flyer together, they asked us for the logo of the church. And I was wondering what their logo is. And it is simply a flame with, looks like kind of a bush thing. Um, and like, yeah, see, that's because that's the beginning. This is God signaling to all those who have been repressed and put under the oppressive rule of Pharaoh that they are being released. And so it is their symbol of good news.
In the way that the cross and empty tomb are the symbol of our good news.
Yeah, so I sent them a picture of an angel. So um, in terms of ecumenical interfaith relationships, I think that was yeah, the right way to go. So
Could it be an angel like holding a little cross?
um, no, it can't. No, I'm just
I'm sorry, I'm just messing with you. I'm
I
messing with
know that the rules of improv are yes and I'm just going to say no.
you. Okay.
It's just it's going to be an angel, and she's happy. The so they take this particular story, and the reason why I like to read things in Hebrew and I'm really getting into the stuff is
Hmm.
as I'm getting the enthusiasm that the rabbi there, Stephen, who I'm getting to know, his enthusiasm for it is contagious, to say the least. And so it's just a lot of fun. And for them, the there is a distinction, and this is where you and I might disagree,
All right, go for it.
um, between holy
Hmm.
and the created order. So there are different created orders. There certainly is the holy, the angel of the Lord. I mean, this is the
Yes.
angel of the Lord. Um, and it, of course, it creates the image of a fire. Of course, it is emanating and radiating light, and even I would say even heat, right? But it's not consuming.
Hmm.
Where the created order are the ones who consume. We consume calories. I'm consuming a little bit of afternoon coffee right now.
Right.
That we tend to absorb and eat things and use things up. But it's the holy order. It's God's order that creates things that do not consume, and it's what keeps us alive.
Yeah, and I don't have an issue with that. I think the point that I was making in terms of, let's say, applying the concept of the burning bush to ourselves, that Jesus has said, "You are the light of the world." Um, the example that I would give is if you go into a church and you see there's different types of candles. So we have a candle that we call the presence candle. It's right next to the ombre where the sacrament is kept, and we try to keep a candle on at all times. Um, that candle is like, you know, beeswax, right? That's a regular candle. Now, the candles that we have on the altar are liquid. And so the kind of the way that I would put it is the fuel, if it was never ending, let's say, the fuel is Christ himself. It is God. The flame that people see is us because we are the light of the world. And so, kind of applying this and threading it out a little more, I think that we're not the ones who create the light. We're not the source of the light. But when people see us out and about, we should be bright enough that people around should be curious about us, about the Lord, and turn and say, "What is that light over there?" That's kind of my thought.
Okay. Um, all right. So it's Isaiah that
Hmm.
says, "We are the light of the world,"
Right.
and then processing out into the world to bring that light.
Hmm.
And as Christians, believe a light to the Gentiles, and we read these stories in Advent as we lead up towards Christmas.
Hmm.
That it's a beautiful image. I think it is the light, the angel of the Lord, if you will. It's
Hmm.
that light shining through us, the way that Duke Ellington's instrument reverberates, sends out sounds. Folks, we were just listening to a little bit of jazz, and it was Duke Ellington. We were listening to Steely Dan before then, but that's a whole separate thing. Um, that we're the instrument, and God is the jazz musician that is firing through us. And so I don't think it's our light. I think it's God's light.
So here's another way that I've thought about it before, and I can think about this in a couple different ways. Is mirrors? Unless you correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think mirrors were something that was truly ever present in this era. You know, glass mirrors and such. But
Well,
I
I mean,
think
not as we have now, but yeah. I mean,
yeah,
they had a way of reflecting image, but yeah.
right. But I think more of perhaps then that we are like the mirror that reflects the light. You know, if you think about a lighthouse has mirrors. The old type of lighthouses have mirrors. We're not the flame. We reflect the light of God. So that's another way that you can also think about it. But I do believe that there is something that we should be doing actively that someone can say, why is that light over there? What's going on over there in this world of darkness? I see something that has caught my eye and I'm curious about it.
Hmm.
And the reason I like that image is because let's say, for example, you know, talking about large storms, hurricanes or hurricanes, you know, I remember living in South Florida when Hurricane Andrew came through.
Wow.
And I remember, you know, neighbors kind of came together, people got out their chainsaws and cut things down, and people like brought tarps out and stuff. And I just felt like the light of God was there, even though there was no electricity. And
Hmm.
people were helping one another, and people were checking on one another and making sure you were okay, and making sure people's families were okay. If somebody's phone was working, you would let everybody use it.
Hmm.
And that's done truly from the love of God. Um, so, like I said, I think that the mechanism that's used about how the light reaches people, you know, we can discuss that, angel of the Lord and all those other things, but
Hmm.
the important thing is that the light gets out there.
True. One more thing I'd like to throw in, and that is we do a weekly discussion group here at All Angels, and we have different articles or topics that come up in periodicals, New York Times, The Atlantic, other sources that we, Wall Street Journal. So the one we're studying this week is Jewish spirituality,
Hmm.
and so as a part of Jewish spirituality, it comes down to lighting the Shabbat candles,
Right.
so that there's a tradition to do that. And so, so one of that traditions is lighting a Shabbat candles that they meditate or hear the blowing of the shofar, which is that
Yeah.
the big ram's horn, which I get to hear occasionally. It's just awesome when they blow it outside. And I tell you what, when they blow it, when it's done, there is silence. It is the birds and everything respond to it. It is the most mystical thing that they blow it, and there's just moment of silence where everything just stands still, and then the creatures and everything start to make noise again. It's awesome. And so the spirituality is that when you light a candle, it is helping to remind us and remind everyone about the light that is God, and that we bring it into our homes, and that light then radiates from our homes into the community. And it's the spirituality of, as they would say, you're going to pray with your feet, as in you're going to walk to bring justice and to bring help to other people. And that is the candle or the light that is shining. Um, and then there's the non-theistic practitioner, as they say it, the one who is doesn't really believe in God, but still lights a Shabbat candle, still gets goosebumps hearing the shofar because it's a reminder of traditions that have been passed to us. And some of these traditions go directly back to Moses. And so to me, that is all a non consuming light.
Right.
Tradition, lighting of candles, remembering, and then having that light shine on our families and our families shine on the community. And then by praying with our feet, by walking out and helping others, um, and that's what God was asking Moses to do. Use your feet,
Yeah.
go get my people, bring them back here. Um,
I think we can have a place of convergence here in a couple areas.
sure.
When we talk about the light not being consumed, you know, that it's
Mhm.
not being
The
used up,
bush.
the bush. Well, I'm talking about the light within us,
Oh,
not
yeah.
not being consumed or not being used up.
Right.
It's because to me the fuel doesn't come from us. And
Hey,
also, right,
now that is something we can agree on.
right,
Yes.
and
Very nice.
and there's a couple elements here that I just want to make sure I bring up and don't forget.
Sure.
The first one is, we're not the source of the light, so that's why it's not going to be consumed. It is an angel of the Lord, or is the Lord Himself, who provides that fuel for the light. But also, it's once a person has accepted Christ and begins to truly shine, there's something that you start to notice. And that is when you light a candle, you cannot determine where that candle is going to shine. It's just going to go in every direction. Unless you cover
Hmm.
it up, it is going to go in every which way direction, right? Because light radiates. And it's the same thing when we begin to shine with the light of God. It's going to shine in directions that we may not even know it's shining. And unless we're going to, like Jesus said, you don't put a candle under a bushel basket. You don't put it under a basket in your home. You light it. And it even lights outside the home for people to
Hmm.
see. So, there's that. And then I think finally, kind of coming back to the idea of the holy ground, is that when we light a candle and we bring ourselves somewhere, we are engaging in the practice of bringing God's holiness to other people. And there are places that you and I have been which may not have felt very holy until we brought God's presence there, and then it became holy ground.
Yes. Right. You just brought me to Native American spirituality about all ground is holy because all ground is God's and God created all of it. And but it's interesting. Well, we certainly should talk more about what is holy and sacred ground and the rest. That this is a fascinating discussion.
And to me, when I think of the word holy, it's set aside.
Right.
Something that has been set aside for God's purpose. And a lot of times, it's good that we think of churches as holy ground.
Right.
But when we go and bless a home, we're saying this place here, this home is holy for the people who are there, and that the people who are in it are holy. They have been
Hmm.
set aside and set apart for God.
Right.
So I think there's a lot to continue to draw out here in subsequent episodes, maybe. Uh,
Hmm.
but what I would encourage people to do is to go back and read this text and just put yourself in Moses' shoes and ask,
Sandals.
sandals, excuse me. You had to do it.
You knew I was going to do it at some
I
point.
knew the
Right.
second I said it, I knew you were just going to
You
do
just
that.
knew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put yourself in Moses' sandals and say, where is the holy ground that I'm treading upon? Where is that holy
Hmm.
ground?
Hmm.
I love to think along those lines because it makes me wonder where my feet are going and if I'm going to the right places, or am I bringing God's holiness with me whenever I'm out and about?
Yes. And the Jewish spirituality of you pray with your feet.
Yeah,
Right. That
exactly.
and Moses certainly was. His face was down, but his feet were on the ground. That he eventually did what God said to do. He did that.
Amen to that.
And I'm reminded of you've been on my boat several
Hmm.
times
Yep.
and more times to come. We wear different shoes on the boat.
Yes, we do.
You don't wear your regular shoes, and you certainly don't wear those shoes in the on a sandbar and walking around. And likewise, at my house, we have a thing where we take our shoes off,
Yeah.
and it's I don't think it's holy ground, but it's just I have. I mean, shoes can be gross.
Well,
And so
and what does it mean to show respect and reverence, which are values that are sorely needed to be multiplied in our day and age?
right, right. The other thing to mention is that we have purchased a place where when we went in, they had a cross over the door and they had a very long palm branch attached to it.
Hmm.
And clearly, that to me, I think that means it was from Palm Sunday, even though this was nowhere near Palm Sunday. And then going through and inspecting the home and then purchasing it, they had a clear bottle of water that I was going to just pour out until I looked at the label and it was handwritten and it said holy water. we're going to treat the water and we're going to treat that palm differently
Right.
than we do with other things because it has been set aside.
Exactly. So there's a lot to keep unpacking here with this concept of holiness, and I know
Mhm.
that's going to be coming up in the next few weeks. So let's continue to tackle it.
That would be great. Yes. In
All
the
right.
meantime, let's prepare for hurricanes that, as my friend Linda had pointed out, she was in the path of Hurricane Hillary in San Diego, and
Mm-hmm.
she said it turned out to be a big flop. May this hurricane be a flop to everyone.
Exactly. May it be much ado about nothing.
Amen. Yes.
Well, thank you for your time today, Dave, and
Thank you, Alex, for your time.
I thank everyone for watching and listening. Stay safe, and don't forget to leave some comments and likes when you see this on YouTube or Spotify or wherever you happen to consume this. And
Very
there you
nice.
go. And
Excellent.
thanks,
Well, God bless
everyone,
you, my brother.
and we'll catch you in the next one.